Hey.
Chapter 19. In the middle of the month of February, Mag and Dryleaf and I reached Tokana at last. I will admit that when we crested that last rise to look upon the city where my family had long dwelled, I feared the worst. We had been almost a month on the road. I was certain the weremage had arrived well ahead of us.
Hey, what's up, Jin? Yeah. Trying to get on more of a consistent schedule, and I'm trying to match up with Megan's, which means that we get up a few hours before the kids, so hopefully I can get some good work done before they get up and I have to help them with schoolwork and stuff.
Whatever evil the Shades were plotting in my homeland, I knew it would be directed against my family. I half expected to find our keep razed and the city burned to the ground, with mayhap an army of Shades still camping on the remains. Instead, I found that things looked almost exactly the way they had when I left home 2 decades before. So much so, in fact, that I was struck by a wave of memory so powerful I pulled Foolhoof to a stop. Mag and Dryleaf, too, halted their horses. For a long while I sat there, at that familiar point where the road reached the crest of the plateau, and surveyed the city before me. The land ran relatively even to the north and south, until after dozens of spans it finally climbed into new peaks, too sharp and steep for any dwellings. But to the north was a great lake in the mountains, and it spilled into a river that came running south into the dale before us. The wide ridge upon which we stood fell off to form the dale's western to form the dale's western slopes, and it was here that Cahuenga had been built. After centuries, the town around it had been spilled into the dale and become a true city. The colors were bleak with winter, except for the kauri trees. I sat there, feeling tiny and inconsequential against the size of the city before me, and the swelling heights of the mountains all around, and I did not notice as tears streaked silently down my cheeks, born of a feeling I could not understand and would not have dared to name. At last, Mag nudged Mist closer to me and took my arm. "Come, you great fool," she said gently. "I would rather not camp here on the mountainside when there are inns so close by." I scrubbed hastily at my face with my sleeve. "Of course," I said quickly. "Forgive me." "There is nothing to forgive, lad," said Dryleaf kindly. "Homecoming is never easy when one has been long away." I nodded, but his words reminded me, too, that this was my home and one place above all others where I did not wish to be recognized. If word reached my family that I was in Tokana. Somewhere on our journey I had acquired a scarf, and now I pulled it up and around my face to hide my features, while at the same time I pulled my cowl down low over my eyes. It left me with only a single small slit to observe the land as we approached, but I felt more comfortable at once. There was almost no chance that the guards at the wall would recognize me, but I was unwilling to take even such an infinitesimal risk. "The Rangatira here is named Thada," I told Dryleaf and Mag. They knew she was my mother already, and I did not wish to say so aloud, even though no one was nearby to hear. "She is the ruling authority, and I imagine her daughter, Ditra, helps her in her duties. Have our writ from Lord Matara ready. It will get us through the gates." Sure enough, when we reached the wall, the guards asked about our business, paying special attention to Mag's spear and to my bow and sword. They found Lord Matara's writ to be in They found Lord Matara's writ to be in order, but they did not let us through immediately, first asking us a few more questions about our business in Tokana. We had prepared a story. We were seeking to deliver a message to a member of Lord Matara's family, who was here on diplomatic business. The guards looked at each other in surprise at that. I frowned, forgetting my desire for discretion for a moment, and spoke. "My good servants, why so many questions? A writ is normally enough to secure passage across the kingdom." "Normally, yes," said one of the guards, an elderly man with a thick beard who did not take too kindly to such a challenge from an uppity youngster. "But you have been on the road and have not heard the news. The High King's seat was attacked near the end of Yanis, and the High King herself narrowly escaped death in the battle." The words struck us like a hammer blow. Mag and I shared a glance, and Dryleaf went very still in his saddle. "Attacked," said Mag. "By whom?" "The kingdom of Dulmoon," said the guard. "A good distance," said the guard. Said the guard. "The kingdom of Dulmoon," said the guard. "A good distance away from us, you might say, but they have many citizens across the 9 kingdoms. If you serve a Rangatira, you should be able to appreciate a little extra caution, given the circumstances." "Of course," said Mag. "If only the Dulmish king were as loyal as you good people, this would not be such a dark day." That seemed to pacify them, especially the old one, and they waved us on after only a few more questions. Dryleaf had remained silent all the long while, answering only when one of the guards asked him a question, and then only in brief, clipped words. As we passed from earshot of the guards, he spoke at last, scarcely above a whisper. "The seat. Lauren." "I know," I said. "She may be fine," said Mag. "Lauren is a clever girl. She has survived worse." "Worse than a battle on the seat?" I said. "They may say it was Dulmoon, but I do not think that is the whole truth. The shades were involved, or I am a fool." "Both things may be true," said Mag. Before I could respond, she quickly went on. "If Annalyn survived, her forces must have won the battle. And you know Lauren is not a fighter."
Hey, what's up, Sim Lover? Good to see you.
"She would not put herself in the middle of a conflict like that." "Those who do not wield blades can still die upon them," I said. "And one battle will not be the end of it," said Dryleaf. "Who knows what may have happened since?" "Not I, and not you," said Mag. "I am as worried about Lauren as either of you, but we cannot know what may or may not have happened to her. And even if we set out for the seat this minute, we could not find out for months. Keep your mind on our task here, and once we have completed it, then we can look after her." I sighed. Very well. It is true enough that we cannot get answers either quickly or easily, and the Weremage will not wait idly if we decide to go find Lauren. Dryleaf shook himself. "You are right, of course. And if she survived, she will receive our letter soon. Mayhap she already has. That is some small comfort, at least." "It is," I said with a smile. Mag murmured in agreement, though she seemed troubled. We turned our attention back to the city around us, and I tried to remember what I could in order to direct us to a good inn for the night. But I felt that with each new corner I turned, I found some way in which the city had changed. I could not be sure if it was only my poor memory, or if things were truly so different as I thought, but I suspected the latter. I thought much of the tall cowrie tree that had been felled in my youth, and I knew that that had not been the end of the changing of my world. Changing of my world. Kaita reached the Shades before we reached Tokana, of course, and she received word the day after we arrived. Phelan, the captain of the stronghold in her stead, delivered the message. He knocked twice on her door, hard. After waiting 3 heartbeats for a response, he opened it and stepped in. In his hand he held a lantern, and he lit a taper from it, which he used to illuminate 2 more lanterns on either side of the room. "Commander Kaita," he said, keeping his eyes studiously away from the bed. "There is news." Kaita was all Kaito was already sitting up, as was the girl who had joined her in her bed that night. The girl looked somewhat embarrassed at the intrusion, but Kaita ignored her and donned a thin robe. The room was cold for such a threadbare garment, but the chill was as nothing to Kaita. "Considering I gave you permission to wake me in only 1 instance," said Kaita, "I think I may venture a guess as to what news you have brought." "She has reached Tokana." "With the others?" said Kaita. He nodded. "The old one known as Dryleaf and the ranger." "The Telfer man is not a ranger," spat Kaita. Phelan did not seem to know quite what to say to that, and eventually he settled for, "They brought the dog as well." Kaita tried to suppress her irritation. Though our journey to Tokana had taken us longer than we wished, we had arrived just a little too soon for her purposes. Matters with the trolls had progressed more slowly than she would have wished. "What of the Telfer patrols?" she said. "We still encounter them occasionally," said Phelan. "Or rather, we see them. We are always careful not to be noticed." "Are they still out at night?" The man frowned. "They are, and they have increased their guard since the trolls crossed the border." Kaita's fingers played with her hair, braiding it absent-mindedly as she considered her plans. "Very well. The trolls' efforts must be increased. Gatak shall have to go and visit them, especially now that Dotag has taken leadership. And keep someone, or several someones, watching Mag at all times. But sky above, do not let her notice. I shall join our agents monitoring them when my other duties permit me." The man bowed. "As you say, Commander." "That will be all." He nodded and left. The room settled to silence, and the girl in Kaita's bed looked uncertainly at her. "Would you like me to go?" "If you wish," said Kaita. "Or you may stay. It is your choice." She removed her robe and lay back down upon the bed, staring at the ceiling with her hands clasped under her head. The girl looked annoyed. "In that case, I think I will take my leave." Kaita barely heard her. The first real notice she took was when the room went suddenly dark, as the girl snuffed the lamps before leaving, but she remained deep in her own thoughts. Mag and I had arrived in Tokana at last. Kaita had lured me all the way home. Soon the long hunt, which had lasted much longer than the paltry few months, would come to an end.
done. Chapter. Hey, what's up, Aftershock? Good morning to you. I gotta go grab coffee real quick. Be right back. Morning, Erica. I can see that, Erica, but I'm not sure if you can see my response.
Chapter 20. I was, as you have gathered, rather terrified of being discovered by my family. To help you understand why, I should tell you something of my eldest sister, Romille, and of something that happened soon after I had fled from home. My mother had no tolerance for what she saw as my foolishness, by which she meant my desire to be happy. She still thought I could be useful to her, and so she sent Romil to bring me home. Romil was very like my mother, which is to say that she was cold and uncaring. Growing up, we hardly ever spoke to each other more than was absolutely required. My mother did not mind. As long as we obeyed her, she cared little for how we felt about each other. It took Romil some months to find me. I had already had my wedding and joined the Upangan. I had already had my wedding and joined the had my wedding and joined the I had already had my wedding and joined the Upangan Blades before she came stomping into our camp one day. Sentries challenged her, and Romil almost came to blows with them, but I happened to be passing by, and I saw her arguing with them. The sight of her froze me in place. I had managed to convince myself that my family would simply let me vanish, that my mother, who had never seemed to care about me one way or another, would forget about me and be satisfied with 2 daughters who seemed willing to serve her. I should have known it was a fool's hope. I approached them and put a hand on the sentry's shoulder. "She is with me," I said. He gave me a doubtful look, but he went off on his patrol, leaving Romil and me standing there facing each other. She studied me, and I studied her in turn. Behind her was a retainer of our house, but I barely noticed. I could only see Romil. She wore our family's colors proudly. A bow was on her back, and an axe hung at her belt. She had done her hair in a single long braid that fell to the small of her back. Her expression was a mixed one, appraisal and faint amusement, but mostly anger. "You look different," she said. "A wedding sometimes has that effect." She grunted. "So it does," she said. "I hope it has made you happy as well as cleared your head. It is time for you to return. Mother commands it." "I no longer follow Mother's commands," I told her. Her fingers tightened on the haft of her axe. "Of course you do," she said. "You are a Telfer. Mother has need of you, and wending or no, you can still be of use." It was, of course, a rather abominable thing to say, and I cannot with any honesty speak in her defense. The time after a wedding is a delicate one. Doubtless you know the ritual one's friends and family are supposed to perform for the sake of the and a person. The kindest thing I can say for Romil is that I do not think she spoke out of malice. Mother had given her a duty, and that duty was the only thing she cared about. My feelings mattered to her not at all. Her response sent my blood rising, and I answered somewhat more rashly than I should have. "I am so glad to hear it, that I might still be useful to her. But I regret to say that I am not going anywhere, least of all with you." She stepped forwards and seized my arm. A few paces away, the retainer's hands balled to fists, though she bore no weapon. "Of course you are, you idiot," snarled Romil. "You have had your mark as an honorless sellsword, but the game is over now. You can ride behind me on my horse."
What happened? Hey, thanks for the host, Erica. Appreciate that.
"No," I cried, recoiling, but her grip on my arm was like an iron band. "Let go of me." "What is all this about?" Never before or since have I been so glad to hear Mag's voice. I looked over my shoulder to see her approaching from the midst of the camp. Near her was the sentry who had first spoken to Romil. He gave me a grip of the camp.
That is a big pop.
the camp. Of the camp. Near her was the sentry who had first spoken to Romil. He gave me a grim look over Mag's shoulder. He must have sensed trouble brewing and gone to fetch her. Mag stepped up close, and Romil had at least enough sense to let go my arm. She stared Mag up and down with a haughty expression I was well familiar with. "Who are you supposed to be?" she said. "A friend," said Mag. Then, as if afraid Romil might be confused, she added, "Not your friend, of course." Romil looked past her to me. "You keep charming company, Vera." My stomach did another ugly turn. Again I spoke without thinking. "My name is Albern now." Romil's eyes shot wide, her expression incredulous. Then she gave a loud, ugly laugh. "Oh, it is it? I suppose I should have expected as much. You always had the strange notion that you were somehow better than the rest of us, though you never did a thing to prove it." "And that is about all I need to hear from you," said Mag. "Leave. Now."
Oh, Erica, that sucks. I'm going to chat at you because you probably can't hear me say that.
"I do not even take suggestions from sellsword scum, much less orders," growled Romil. "Walk away if you know what is good for you." Mag looked over her shoulder at me. "I do not much like her. Should I—" "Leave it." I looked past her to Romil. "That goes for you as well. I'm staying here. You can tell Mother you tried, and that you failed." Romil's face grew dark with anger. "I have not failed at anything, you witless girl." Mag struck faster than I could see. Her fists cracked twice against Romil's face, flinging her senseless to the ground. I stared at her fallen form in horror and grief. The retainer tensed as if readying for a fight, but Mag stopped her with a look. "You would be unwise to push the matter," she said. "Take your master and ride away with her. Go back to your lord. Tell her whatever you wish, but get this wretch out of my sight before I send her back with more than a headache." The retainer did as Mag commanded. I could not even watch. My head hung between my knees as I sat on the ground, angry tears pouring their tracks down my cheeks. As Romil rode off, slumped over her horse's neck, Mag came to sit beside me, throwing an arm around my shoulder and holding me until my grief subsided. My grief subsided. Albern looked suddenly down at Sun. "Do you understand why I am telling you this?" Sun blinked up at him. "You said I should know something of Romil." "That is not the only reason. You know by now that our families are not entirely dissimilar. Mine tried to drag me back home. Yours may do the same, but your life is your own, and your future is a choice no one can make for you. And if they try to convince you otherwise, well, you have a friend who can help you now, just as I had one to help me then." Sun blinked at a sudden smarting in her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly, for she did not trust herself to speak any louder. "That means a great deal." Albern nodded. "So long as you know. Now, let us return to the tale." Let us return to the tale.
Alright, done with chapter 20. Hey, what's up, Ari? Glad to have you.
Chapter 21. After a good night's rest at a fine inn near the western edge of Kahwanga, our party woke and began our search for the shades. First we spoke to our innkeeper and some others in the common room, trading stories of travel through the kingdom for information about events in Tokana. We learned very quickly about the trolls' recent incursions into Telfer lands. When I first heard of it, I thought it was an elf tale, someone spreading stories meant to give the listener a thrill. But when we heard the same thing from 3 different people, the truth became clear. The trolls were encroaching upon Tokana, and no one in the city knew why. But I had some idea. I led Mag and Dryleaf back to our room to speak in private. Colentin inns are tolerant of hounds, so Oku came as well.
That is a heckin' busy day, Ari. Jabberknot, I'm sorry to hear that. So you can watch on phone. You can watch on PC, but not on your phone, and Erica can watch on her phone, but not on her PC. Lauren is here. Hey. There we go.
He flopped down on a small blanket in the corner, tongue lolling from his mouth in a smile. But he looked at all of us with keen eyes as we talked. "This situation with the trolls," I said as soon as the door closed. "We must learn everything we can about it." Mag frowned. "Why? It seems a local trouble." "The trolls are an exceptionally peaceful people," I said. "My family has never had conflict with them. For them to now show aggression—" "You think it has something to do with the shades," said Dryleaf, pursing his lips. Understanding dawned in Mag's eyes. "As with the vampires." "It must be," I said. "The shades are provoking them to carry out these attacks. Either they are drawing the trolls in with some lure, or they are driving them out of the mountains towards us. Though I know not how such a thing could be done. The trolls are formidable in battle and very difficult to harm. Only a well-fortified stronghold would have any hope of defending against them, and even then not for very long." "Are you certain?" said Mag. "Human lords squabble with each other over borders all the time, with little or no provocation." I shook my head. "The trolls are not human, nor are they beasts like vampires possessing little wit. They are cleverer than satyrs, though much slower to anger, which is why you must fear their wrath all the more, for once stoked it can be impossible to quell." They are the titled lords of the Great Rocks, from Calentin's northern border to the city of Woad, far to the south. The Calentin king and their border guards are permitted to have settlements on the only 3 passes that provide easy passage through the mountains, and the trolls rule the rest of it. For them to attack our domain goes against the pact. Mag shrugged. They forged a pact, and now they have broken it. It may be treacherous, but these are uncertain times. This is not some petty squabble between human lords, said Dryleaf. He leaned forwards in his chair, both hands wrapped tight around his staff. He looked suddenly very old. The trolls first came into the mountains not long after Roth's armies had conquered Underrealm. That is more than 1,200 of years ago. They came from the rocky deserts to the north. No one knows why. When they first came, Calentin tried to fight them, seeing them as just another invader. But the trolls were implacable, as well as being nearly impossible to kill, and even more so in those days, when no one had ever dealt with them before. In the end, a captain of the Calentin army first had the idea for a treaty with the trolls.
Well, good morning, Dread. Sorry you had a rude awakening.
Roth's forces had forged the 9 kingdoms, but conflict between kings did not end with the foundation of Underrealm. Calentin had long struggled to keep the Great Rock secure against incursions from Feldamar, and their forces were stretched thin with the effort. The trolls could protect the mountains better than Calentin ever could, and they would mostly occupy lands that humankind could not settle anyway. Dryleaf paused for a moment, and then he turned his head in my direction. That captain's name was Alban, of the family Telfer, and for forging that ancient pact with the trolls, he and his descendants were named lords of the northern Great Rocks, where they live to this day. Mag looked at me in wonder, and I gave her an embarrassed smile. Yes, that is where I took the name after my wending. I had heard tales of Alban of the family Telfer all my life. It was quite the legacy to live up to. My smile dampened a bit. Some in my family felt so overshadowed by our history, in fact, that it consumed them, and became more important to them, in fact, that it consumed them. Fact that it consumed them, consumed.
Hello, ugly. Die. I have a question for you. Yeah? Die. That's not really a question.
Fact that it consumed them.
Ever heard of paintball? Yeah. Take out the T. I don't get it. I get it.
Fact that it consumed them, and became more important to them than the present. Mag nodded slowly. And this pact, she said at last, between the Telfers and the trolls, it has lasted ever since? Without once bringing us into conflict, I said. Sometimes our people have said...
Yeah, sorry, something just reminded me of Dragon Ball Z Abridged, and I've been watching a lot of Dragon Ball Z Abridged recently. So my kids, and I've been watching it with my kids, so we'll, like, quote episodes to each other.
Sometimes our people have settled in land...
What happened? Hey, thanks for the host, Dredd. Appreciate that.
Sometimes our people have settled in lands that, strictly speaking, are beyond the borders. But the trolls also come into our lands on occasion. As far as anyone can remember, the relationship has been amicable, and any problems have been resolved quickly. The trolls are easy to deal with, and they enjoy most human foodstuffs, which makes them easy to bribe if all else fails. Yet now they are agitated, and no overtures towards peace seem to have been effective, said Dryleaf, assuming the Rangatira has made such overtures. She would have, I said, but it is clear they were unsuccessful. Because of the shades, finished Mag. Her face was solemn, but a light danced in her eyes. I understand. If we investigate this matter with the trolls, it should lead us to the weremage, and we can hope that slaying her will end the problem with the trolls as well. We can hope, I said grudgingly. Whatever the shades have done to direct the troll's wrath at Cahuenga, I only pray we can
That's a click and a half.
Cahuenga. At Cahuenga, I only pray we can turn it in another direction before they have torn my family's home down to its foundations. I have faith in your abilities, said Dryleaf with a smile. The name of Alburn may save these mountains again. Not if we never get started, said Mag. Where do we begin? If we are right in our guess, the shades will be found lurking somewhere in the mountains, I said. They could not interact with the trolls from here in the city. They say the trolls have been pushing into human territory, said Mag. What if we find them when next they attack and follow them back to their home? If they have been dealing with the shades, we can find them that way. No, I said at once, and more sharply than I intended. You know little of trolls, and so you cannot understand how dangerous such a plan would be. Mag shrugged. We have faced danger before. No one thought we could fight a vampire and win. This is nothing like that.
Oh, thanks for the host, Derry. Appreciate that.
This is nothing like that, I said grimly. You were fast enough to wound the vampires with your spear and to avoid their blows, but speed will not help you against a troll. You can strike it as much as you like, but your spear will do nothing against their hide, nor will my arrows unless I hit one in the eye. And such a small wound will do little beyond angering them enough to crush us beneath their fists. The only thing that can truly harm them is fire, and only the Rangatira's forces have the oil one needs to fight a troll. She grinned at me, which only served to make me more annoyed. We will be careful, she assured me. We will not let the trolls see us. I may know little of them, yet I know they do not have eyesight or a sense of smell as good as our own. They should be easy to track, and without them ever being the wiser. I huffed through my nose. We can try, but if you have any sense at all, a doubtful prospect at the best of times, you will follow my guidance when it comes to these beasts. I would rather not see you meet an undignified, if long overdue, end, crushed by a troll in mountains far from home.
What a
Mag
dick.
snatched my shoulder.
Huh? Oh, hey. Lauren gifted those subs.
What a dick.
You rock. What's up, Itanchi? Good to see you.
Mag snatched my shoulder and pulled me into a side-armed hug, bouncing me up and down and ruffling my hair. There is the cheerful Alburn I have so missed. This whole matter will be resolved in no time. I heaved a great sigh, knowing she was wrong, and knowing, too, that I would never be able to convince her.
Chapter 21 done. Chapter 21 done. Ugh. Oh. Oops. All right, one more chapter and then a break, I think. Oh, thanks, Jabbernaut. Appreciate that.
Chapter 22. We returned to the common room and asked the innkeeper about the last settlement the trolls had attacked. She told us everything she knew, including where to find it. It was a small town called Ahuroa. Hearing the name sent a chill up my back. I had visited in my youth, both with and without my mother. Ahuroa was an overnight journey away from the city. We left Dryleaf at the inn, with a plan for him to continue gathering information in the common room and Mayup elsewhere in the city. Mag and I took Oku, as well as our travel packs, and set out into the countryside. My mother was much on my mind as we made our way through the city streets. I remembered journeys we had made, with me riding beside her just as I rode beside Mag now. I remembered trips to Ahuroa when she had made me wait in our dwellings while she tended to business. And I remembered returning from journeys I had made on my own, and Mother being furious that I had left the city without telling anyone. Indifference when I did my duty, and wrath at any dereliction. It was a fair encapsulation of what life had been like with her. The guards at the north gate were less watchful than those we had met the day before. Leaving the city, it seemed, was less suspicious than arriving at it. When they asked what business we had in the wilds, I told them I had a cousin who had not come with the other refugees from Ahuroa. The trolls had not killed anyone, so I said he must be lost in the wilds. The guards eyed our weapons, but Lord Matara's writ permitted us to be armed, and they wished us luck as we rode out.
Quick bathroom.
The moment we passed into open country, I felt my whole body ease. It was a relief so sharp that it stunned me. Only the day before, I had ridden these same mountains in the open air. One night in Kahonga had made me tense as a bowstring, yet I had not realized it until I felt it bleed away. A rueful laugh slipped out of me, and Mag glanced over. "There is no one else around, so I know I did not miss a joke." I shook my head. "I was just reminded of riding from the city as a child. I always found my home less comfortable than solitude in the wilderness." Mag was silent for a little while. "I suppose that was true for me as well," she said at last, her voice low. "I spent many years in the woods on my own when I was young, and forests are still my favorite place to be by myself. They remind me of the peace I knew before I went out into the wide world, before I met you, if I am being honest. It is why I fell in love with Northwood. The trees were only a stone's throw from my tavern, and I would walk among them often." I will admit I was shocked. Mag had rarely spoken to me of her youth before we met, and I had never pried. She would tell me if she wanted to, I knew. Hearing her suddenly speak of it now was not unlike when I had heard the satyrs speak of a lord. The words were not strange on their own, but the source turned them quite shocking. I very badly wanted to ask her to tell me more, but I could hear the nervousness in her voice. She was clearly uncomfortable having said so much. I worried that if I pressed her, she might not speak of it again, and so I said nothing. We rode on for a while in silence after that. Northwest of Kahonga, the mountains rise up to sharp peaks, which fall steeply away until they flatten out in the little dale overlooked by the stronghold, with gentler slopes on the eastern side. We rode a narrow path that had been cut into that sharp western face, mostly used by rangers who needed to reach far villages and settlements with speed. It gave us a wonderful view down into the dale, though that was spoiled, for me at least, by the sight of how far the city had spread across the mountains. Many trees had been felled, so that the once tranquil forest had been cleared to beyond the dale's eastern side, and homes and settlements had begun to edge up the slopes there. Though it was early morning, the slopes
Ooh. Love a good neck crack.
had begun to edge up the slopes there. Though it was early morning, a thin pall already hung in the air below us, the smoke of hearths and cooking fires trapped by the mountains, giving the lower city a blurred, hazy appearance, like something half-glimpsed in a nightmare. It was a darker, dirtier thing than the thick, gray cloud cover above us. At last our path turned around the edge of a mountain, and we were in the wilderness proper. There the road struck the top of a wide ridge, and we were able to kick our horses to a trot, making better time. Oku padded along happily with us. On occasion he would go ranging far ahead, though never out of sight, and then sit by the side of the road until we had caught up to him, before making 2 turns around our horses' hooves and then running forwards again. The road grew somewhat narrow and began to wind around the side of peak after peak. Shortly after we lost sight of the city, we came to the first stone bridge spanning the gap between 2 slopes. We stopped at its western end. By the lip of the cliff into which the bridge had been built, there was a small shelf just visible. I tried to ignore it, tried to avoid looking at it entirely. I did not succeed. A dark and hazy memory swam into my mind, a relic of my youth, and a reminder of something I would much rather. A relic of my mind, a relic of my youth, and a reminder of something I would much rather have forgotten. Mag, meanwhile, sat staring at the bridge in wonder. It was a half-span long, with its foundations set into the mountains on either end. But it had no supports in the middle, only open air between the bridge and the ground, which was a span below. "How did they build it?" said Mag. "With no pillars, and no way to have any while they worked." "There are tricks," I said. "Not that I know what they are. I am a guide, not a mason. I will admit the bridges never held much interest for me." "Keen eyes and a dull mind," said Mag. "I am hardly surprised, but an evil mood as well. Why are you so grumpy?" "Bad memories," I said. "Let us ride on." We crossed the bridge. Soon the chasms before the peaks grew less deep and less sheer, and the ground and less sheep and less sheep.
Hello, ugly. Die.
Deep and less sheer, and the ground rose to meet the road. We came to another small dale like the one where Kahonga had been built, and there was the lake that flowed off into the river that ran through the center of the city. But most of the ground here was hard and rocky, ill-suited for farming. This vale could support no more than a single small village. I saw it there, on the other end of the lake, its homes perched at the water's edge. A few boats were out on the water. Our side of the lake was far less gentle. We had to pick our way between boulders and across craggy breaks in the land, sharp fissures that pinched to nothing a few paces down. Oku moved more slowly now, sticking close to us, unsure of his footing on this new terrain. I found myself growing tense again, distracted, almost irritable. I had to force my attention back to the path ahead of us. It had turned from a solid road to little more than an animal trail, and almost all my focus was required to pick the right path through the rocks and avoid dead ends. Almost all my focus, but not quite. Suddenly I realized why I was so distracted. My mind was not wandering, it was drawn to something. Tiny noises, which I had passed off as an echo from the stones, but which carried on when we paused for breath. We were being followed. I drew an arrow, knocked, and turned in a flash. I paused for a heartbeat before loosing, not wanting to harm some innocent passerby. There, high above, a woman in gray clothes and a blue cloak, with hard-bitten features. I fired. If I had not hesitated, I would have struck her in the thigh. As it was, the fletching nearly grazed her rump as she scrambled out of sight. "Up there!" I cried. Mag did not question me. Slinging her shield onto her arm, she sprang off of mist and up the slope towards the woman who had been hunting us.
Done. 'All right. Been working for about an hour, so I'm going to go take a short break. Give myself a few minutes. You know, Lauren, it's really funny that you say that you're getting McCree vibes right now. Because that's, to an American, that's like That's like people who say a British accent. And it's like, okay, but which one? And like how the differences between regional British accents are so clear to you. Alburn's accent is nothing like McCree's. But it is. I recognize that objectively, from an outsider's perspective, they're very close to each other. But I'm like, McCree? What do you? No, 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 no. All right, I'm going to take a short break. Back in probably like 5 minutes or so.
Chapter 23. I spared no thought for the horses. I spared no thought for the horses. I ran after Mag. "Oku! Tiss!" I cried, and Oku came bounding after me. Mag had outdistanced me, but she was looking for a way to climb up towards her prey. The woman dodged nimbly through the rocky terrain, clearly familiar with it. I only caught sight of her for a blink at a time, never long enough for a clear shot. She was much higher on the slope than we were. Mag ran for a sharp incline that would take her up, but when she tried to climb, the land broke under her feet. "Too soft!" I cried as I ran past her. "We have to find another way." Mag growled and tried again. She planted the butt of her spear in the ground to help her, and it held. She climbed up, but ever so slowly. I lost sight of her a heartbeat later. We were nearing the southern end of the dale. Not far away was the road we had taken to get here. If I could reach the road before the woman, we would have her trapped. I kept glancing up as I sprinted, catching flashes of her blue cloak between the rocks. It would be a near thing. I pushed myself harder, my legs flying. I rounded a boulder and saw the road a span away. The woman was still moving between the rocks, but there was a half span of open ground before the road. I nocked an arrow and drew, waiting for her to emerge into the open. Oku gave a thunderous bark and leaped ahead of me, trying to intercept her. With a scream, a streak of black feathers swept down upon me. Pain lanced across my face as I felt talons bite into my flesh. I cried out and lost my balance, crashing down upon a rock that struck me in the ribs. Wheezing with the pain, I fought my way back to my knees. In the air above me, the raven wheeled and screeched again. Oku, hearing my cry, had stopped and was now looking back. The woman we had been pursuing was may up a dozen paces from the road, but I knew the raven that had attacked me was no ordinary beast. "Oku, attack!" I called out. The hound hesitated. "Haka!" I cried. He turned and went after the fleeing shade. I turned my attention back to the weremage. An arrow was in my hand faster than blinking. I loosed it at the raven, even as it wheeled and dived for me again. The arrow impaled its wing. The raven screamed and crashed into the ground behind a rock a half span away. I moved forward slowly, readying another arrow. Slowly. Slowly, readying another arrow. Mage light flashed. The weremage's form swelled as she took her human shape, and I caught sight of her behind the rock. Emotions torrented through me. Anger for what she had done to Sten, triumph at the fact that we had found her at last, and fear, for Mag was not there to assist me, and I had no idea where she had gone. "Mag!" I screamed, my voice echoing off the hard land. "I have her!" The weremage cried out in pain as she dragged the arrow through the back of her arm. Her eyes flashed again as she sealed the wound. I drew and fired, but she cowered behind the rock, and I missed. I stopped in my tracks, drawing another arrow. She could not hide forever. Slowly I backed up, step by step, risking only the briefest glances to see my footing. Another flash of mage light. The mountain lion with the white tail sprang into view. It was the form she had used to kill Sten. A fresh surge of anger struck me, throwing off my next shot. The mountain lion snarled and leaped to the side, the arrow missing by almost a pace. I threw the bow aside and drew my sword from my belt. The weremage stalked closer, hackles up, a low growl rumbling from her throat. Fear now joined anger in my gut, churning it, threatening to make me vomit. "Do it!" I screamed, forcing the terror away. "Do it, you sow!" The lion roared. It sank back onto its haunches, ready to pounce. And then a furious stream of barking made us both pause. Oku had abandoned his pursuit of the shade to help me. He streaked in from the left, a blur of brown and black fur. Teeth flashed in the dull gray sunlight as he drove the mountain lion back a pace. She swiped at him, and Oku dodged it, barking louder. Then Mag came dashing into view. She was higher up on the slope down which the other shade had come. I watched as she took in the scene in a heartbeat. Her battle trance came over her, the dead-eyed expression crashing down her face like a portcullis. She charged from behind, but the were-mage heard her coming. She looked back over her shoulder, and I could practically see the fear shoot through her as she saw Mag. With a desperate swipe, she drove Oku back and darted towards the road to Kahwanga. "After her," called Mag, her voice toneless. I recovered my bow and we gave chase together. I managed to get off one more shot before the were-mage vanished around the first curve in the road. It streaked just past her white tail. We sprinted after her, the slapping of our boots echoing off the mountains. "Mountain lions cannot run forever," I gasped as we ran. "Bursts of speed, but little endurance." "Save your breath for running," said Mag tonelessly. We had only one advantage. Tonelessly. Tonelessly. We had only one advantage. The were-mage could not turn into a raven and fly away again. If she tried it, I could shoot her down, and she knew it. And in just a few moments we would reach the bridge. That was a wide open space, and I would have a clear shot. The hunt was about to end. The other shade might have escaped, but that would be something to deal with later. Then we rounded the path leading to the bridge, and I heard the sound of thundering hooves. Confusion made my steps falter, even as I saw the were-mage dashing across the bridge in front of us. Beyond her was a party of rangers in Telfer colors, riding towards us on horseback. They were less than a span from the other end of the bridge. "Now, Albern," snapped Mag. "Shoot her." I shook off my surprise and fired. The arrow flew true, sinking into the were-mage's flank. She roared in pain. An arrow in her side and a party of riders ahead. The rangers had drawn up short, some reaching for their bows, others snatching spears from holsters on their saddles. The were-mage was finished. She had to be. And then she turned. At the other end of the chasm, at the edge of a cliff which the bridge had been built to span, there was a small shelf. A small shelf I had avoided looking at. The source of a bad memory I wished to forget. The mountain lion leaped down to the shelf, and then she vanished over the other side of it. From where we stood, and from where the rangers sat on their horses, it looked like she must have plunged to her death. But I knew she had not. I knew that over that shelf was a slope, steep and rocky, and worn smooth by ages of rainfall and exposure to the open wind. I knew that, and so had the were-mage. She had scouted this area better than I thought she could have. She had only run this way because she knew she had a means of escape. "Albern," said Mag, her voice still monotonous with her trance. My attention was dragged reluctantly back to the present situation. Now that the mountain lion had vanished, the party of rangers had turned their focus on us. They were advancing slowly across the bridge, weapons advancing slowly. Advancing slowly across the bridge, weapons raised. Two had dismounted, and they held their spears ready as they approached. "Drop your spear," called one still on horseback, a thicker woman with a shaved head, tattoos all over her lower face. "And you, your bow." "That mountain lion," I began. "Your weapons," she shouted. I ground my teeth in frustration, but I dropped my bow. "Do it," I muttered to Mag. Her battle trance dropped away, and anger showed plain in her features. "Albern, the were-mage," We have no choice, I said, unless you wish to slay a whole troop of my family's rangers. I believe you could do it, but I hope you will not. She growled and dropped her spear into the dirt. The rangers relaxed a bit and came forwards more quickly. We backed a few paces away from our weapons. Oku looked alert, but he did not growl at them, even as the two on foot scooped up the bow and spear. "Who are you?" said the woman. Now that she was closer, I could see a badge on her chest, my family's symbol, the bow and 3 arrows, crafted of silver instead of iron. A captain, directly under command of the lead ranger. "I am Kanahari," I said. "This is Chow. You must listen to us. That mountain line you just saw, it was a were-mage. She is on the run from the king's law." That gave all of them pause. The whole party gave confused glances to their captain, who frowned down at us from atop her horse. "A were-mage," she said. "Yes, and she is—" I bit my own words off, glowering at the ground. "She's getting away." It was too late. By now the were-mage would have reached the end of the slope. She had already had plenty of time to resume her human form, heal herself with her magic, and then take a raven's form to fly away. She was gone. She had escaped. Again. Suddenly, one of the rangers leaned forwards, peering at our faces. "Wait, I remember you." I looked up at him in surprise, and then I recognized him. He had been one of the guards at the gate when we arrived to Kahonga the day before. My heart sank. "Who are they?" said the captain. "New arrivals to Kahonga," said the guard. "They came through the west gate yesterday, along with an old man." "On what business?" said the captain. "They said they were delivering a message to a cousin of the Lord Matara." The ranger's frown deepened. "Which does not explain why they are out here in the wilderness." "We have Lord Matara's writ," said Mag. The captain's brows drew close. "If you serve a Rangatira, you know that visitors are not allowed to hunt in another lord's domain, with or without a writ." "We were not hunting," growled Mag. "We pursued a were-mage. She attacked us. Why else would we chase a lion through the wilderness?" The captain paused again. She gave an uncertain glance to the guard beside her, who had begun to look doubtful. Mag could contain herself no longer. "She is a shade, you fools!" "Mag!" I said, but too late. A shock passed through their party. The captain's face darkened, and all doubt vanished from her expression. "If you know what that means," she hissed, "then you know better than to be shouting it out loud." "We have hunted her across 2 kingdoms," I said, spreading my hands and adopting my most disarming tone. "My friend spoke in haste, but she is not—" "Enough," snapped the captain. I fell silent. "If you speak the truth, and she is a were-mage, then she is well beyond our reach by now. And if you are lying, then you have broken Kalentin law. In either case, this matter is out of my hands." She turned to her party. "Bind them. We are taking them to the Rangatira." A pit formed in my stomach. A pit. A pit. A pit formed in my stomach, a bottomless hole that threatened to engulf me. I searched desperately for some excuse, something I could say that would save us. Nothing came, and so I remained silent as the 2 guards on foot approached and took Mag and me by the arms.
It's windy up there, Dread?
Alburn led. Chapter 24. Alburn led Sun around the edge of the hill, and suddenly there was Lan Shui. He paused the tail, and they both. There was Lan Shui. There was Lan. Suddenly there was Lan Shui. He paused the tail, and they both stood looking upon the town. Sun found herself speechless. She had never seen Lan Shui, and yet Alburn had described it in such detail that she felt as if she had been here before. It was nestled by a river that thundered down out of the great rocks, the peaks stretching tall and mighty above it. The western spur, which had seemed so large before, was now dwarfed by mountains that were no longer hidden by nearer hills. "Lan Shui," said Alburn. "It has been a long time since last I beheld it. Come, I'm hungry, and I long for something to drink."
Wait, can you guys not see me? Wow, my microphone was muted, so that's cool. But is the audiobook not playing through the speakers?
Come, I'm hungry, and I long for something to drink. He nudged his horse forwards, and Sun followed. Though she kept studying the town as they approached, her mind drifted back to the tale Alburn had been telling her. "She got away," said Sun. "Kaita, I mean. You were both such capable fighters, and yet she escaped you." "As she did in Northwood," said Alburn. "She had help in Northwood," said Sun. Alburn looked down at her, brows raised. "I'm afraid I do not see your point, unless you mean to imply that we let her get away." "Of course not," said Sun quickly. "It is only that it must be the unluckiest thing I have ever heard of." Alburn chuckled. "Luck. I've told you already." "That you do not believe in luck," said Sun. "That you trust fate instead. Yes, I have heard you, many times. But if that is true, if you were not meant to kill Kaita then, and you were meant to find me in that tavern and all the rest of it, then why do anything at all? Why make choices? Why try?
Hey, Josh.
If you are meant to do one thing or another, if it is all a path laid before you in advance, then what does it matter what choices you make? Albern's smile grew a little sad. It is tragic to see such cynicism in one so young. I speak of your beliefs, not my own, grumbled Sun. And you apply a fatal viewpoint to them, said Albern. Think of this. One thing is certain for all of us. Death lies at the end of our road. That is a certainty. That is a fate no one can escape. So, if we know we are fated to die, would you say we should not live? Of course not. Our choices are everything. They make us who we are. And I believe they do shape events. Sometimes a greater force, fate I call it, though others have other words, it stops us from making the choice we want to make. But that does not mean our choice is invalid or that we were wrong for making it. Think of it as a war between forces, a conflict between the things we can choose and the things we cannot. We may not be able to control everything, but we must never stop trying to help when we can, however we can. It was another one of Albern's sayings that had the sound of deep wisdom, but which made Sun most uncomfortable, for reasons she did not entirely understand. It kept her silent until they entered Lan Shui, waved on by a guard at the gatehouse who gave them only a cursory inspection. Within the walls, she let herself get distracted by the sights around her. A strange cast seemed to cover the buildings, as well as the mountains and green fields beyond. She was reminded of Albern's tale of the place, of the desperate battle he and Mag had fought against the vampires within these walls. Could she, in fact, see scratches on the walls from the vampires' claws? Or did they come from a more mundane source? Or did she imagine them entirely? But, too, she thought of the story he had just been telling her, about his little party riding into Telfer lands. The experiences were very similar, and the sensation she had now was familiar as well. The malaise of riding into a foreign town as a stranger, an interloper in another's domain. It is different, being a traveler, is it not? Said Sun. I have not often had the experience of riding into a town or city unless I was a distinguished guest of some lord there. It is odd to be just a person who knows no one, to whom nothing is familiar. Yes, it can be strange, said Albern, but I think your discomfort will fade with time, and with practice. Strangers are usually kind. More often than not, you will find yourself welcomed in the places you visit, as long as you bring no evil with you. The experience Mag and I had when we first arrived here, or when we encountered those Telfer rangers in the mountains, is a rare one. Here in Lan Shui, Yue only distrusted us because the town was in danger. In the mountains, the Telfer guards only suspected us because they were on high alert, for the trolls were threatening their home. The kindness with which we were received at the gates of Opara and at Kohanga is the norm, not the exception. In time not the exception. In times of peace, people are given to hospitality, and even charity. Sun looked nervously around at the town again. Then what sort of welcome do you expect in these times? Albern gave a little frown and did not answer. He pulled his horse to a stop in front of an inn. Sun read the sign over its door. The Sun Spear. But she could not reconcile Albern's stories of the place with the sight before her. This building looked almost brand new, and when Albern saw to his horse's lodgings and led her inside, there was a young woman behind the bar, not the older man from his tale. This looks rather different from what you told me, said Sun quietly. Albern paused in his advance across the room. Oh, yes, it would. Many buildings in Lan Shui were destroyed in the Necromancer's War. The innkeeper who used to own it, the one we met and who I told you about, was killed. But the inn was rebuilt, and his daughter owns it now. That is her behind the bar. If you find us a table, I will fetch us a meal and some drinks." Son did as he asked, finding a spot in the corner. Albern soon arrived with a savory stew that made her mouth water, as well as a mug of beer for each of them. For a time they said nothing, only tucking into their fare and drinking deep. After a quarter hour they both leaned back in their chairs at the same time, sighing. "I asked after Dewan," said Albern. "She is here. I have sent word that we arrived, and she should come to see us shortly." "That is good," said Son. Then she frowned. "I think." Albern chuckled. "It is. I only hope it does not take too long. I wish to see to our other business outside of town before the end of the day." Son's stomach did a little turn. "I suppose I wish to do so as well." "It is all right if you are a little nervous," said Albert. "But come, I will return to the tale to take your mind off it, if that is all right." "Of course," said Son. "You mentioned earlier how strange it was that Kaita escaped," said Albert. "But you have little inkling, I think, of just how right you are. To understand, you need to know how I left my home in my youth, when at last I had decided to do so. I should not have escaped. You might call it sheer luck that I managed it. But I think I was meant to get away that night, and it is a tale worth telling."
$24 done.
Chapter 25. I had just reached the age of 19. There were 2 storms that night, one outside our stronghold of Kahwanga, and one within. It was my mother, you see, Lord Thada of the family Telfer, Rangatira of Tokana. She was furious about something or other. No, that is not fair to her. Because of how she treated me, I sometimes speak lightly of the very real problem she faced as a Rangatira. In this case, a group of Feldmarian bandits had ventured into our pass. My mother had sent a party of rangers to drive them out, and 3 of our soldiers had fallen. One had been a captain who she had particularly favored. I think she had been meaning to take him as a husband. You will remember that my father was long dead by this point. In any case, I was in my room, and I was grieving, though for quite a different reason. I had had a hunting hound for much of my youth, a fine beast I had called Cowie. He had died that day. A few days before, while we were out on a trail, he had slipped and fallen when a shelf of land collapsed underneath him. The fall, and the rocks that landed on him after, broke most of his body. I carried him home, and there he lingered for a few days. Our master of hounds had urged me to put him out of his misery, for he had no chance of surviving. I refused because I loved him, and because I was still very young and unwise about some things. So when Cowie had finally died, I was abruptly saddled not only with the grief of his loss, but with the guilt that I had made him suffer longer than he had needed to. It was in this state that my mother found me, alone in my room, my pillow soaked through with tears. I was drunk as well, for I had stolen 2 bottles of wine from the kitchen and gone through both of them. My sister Dietra was away on a diplomatic trip to the south, and so she had not been there to comfort me. I longed for her company, and so you can imagine my disappointment and dismay when I looked up at the sound of my door opening and found my mother looking down on me instead. "Vera," she said, for this was before any of us knew I was Ander, "I have need of you." For a moment I could only blink up at her. "What?" I said at last. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. She crossed the room and pulled me up off the bed, giving me a shake. "I said I have need of you. You will need to ride out. Get some more useful clothes." What are you talking about?" My voice still shook with sobs, and there was a slur in it as well. "You are drunk," she said with deep disapproval. "Soldiers from Feldemar have killed 3 of our people. We are going to retaliate. I am sending you out with the raiding party. It is about time you learned something of real combat." I snatched my arm away from her, drawing back. "You are riding to Feldemar?" "No," she said, her gaze steely. "You are." "You are not even coming with me?" I said. "I have never fought before. I've never killed before." Her mouth shriveled into a scowl. "I am well aware of that, but you have had training, just like any of us. It is about time you got your arrows wet. The journey through the pass will sober you." "No," I said, my voice coming out as little more than a whisper. I shook my head and spoke louder. "I will not." I could almost feel the tension rise in her body. "You will." I tried to push past her. "Leave me alone." She snatched my arm and shoved me down on the bed. Ignoring my protests, she dragged up my arm and pulled back my sleeve, exposing the family mark. "Do you see this? Do you know what it means? It means you are pledged to the service of this family." Her grip was too strong, and I could not break free. "I never wanted that mark." "It is your duty," she said. At last she let me go, flinging my arm away as though it were something dirty. "You are a child of the family Telfer. It is an honor, and it comes with a responsibility. Yet here you sit, weeping into your sheets about a mangy hound, drinking yourself into a stupor as though you lost someone important." Before I knew it, I was on my feet, my nose only a few fingers away from hers. "I had him since my 8th year," I said, my voice dropping to a growl. "He was my friend." "He was a dog, you witless girl," said my mother. "And he was mine, not yours. I am Rangatira. You are not even fit to be one of my rangers, but I will forge you like a blade until you are. Get dressed. Do you think I acted this way when your father died?" "I am sure you did not," I said. "But then, you never really cared about him, did you?" She slapped me. I suppose it was not as hard as it could have been. Certainly I had taken harder blows in weapons training, but still I went crashing back atop my bed, cradling my cheek with one hand. If you were not my daughter, I would put you to death for disobeying me, and I would be within my rights to do so, said my mother calmly. But being my child will not protect you if you continue in disobedience. Your Rangatira has given you an order. You will obey it, or you will face the king's law. She turned on her heel and marched from the room, slamming the door shut as she went. Slowly I realized that she was not angry for my words about my father. She was only upset that I continued to disobey her. That was all that mattered, how useful I could be to her. I lay on the bed, fresh tears staining my face and the sheets. I tried to force my sobs to subside, but it happened slowly. The king's law. Would she truly brand me as a traitor? I thought she might. What would be the penalty for defying one's lord? I knew a soldier could be exiled for that or executed, but I did not think, even then, that she would order the death of her own child. That left exile. And with that thought, my mind was made up. If I was going to be cast out of my home, then I would not wait for her to pronounce that judgment. All the unease that had been building in me for years, all my discontent and dissatisfaction came welling up in me at once. Ditra was the only person in Kohonga whom I loved, and she was growing ever more distant as my mother dragged her further into her duty to the family. There was nothing to hold me here, and if I stayed, I would either be miserable for the rest of my life or accept my fate as Ditra had and become one of my mother's warriors, a sword for her to wield, an arrow for her to loose at her enemies. I would not let that happen. Quickly I dressed myself, in useful clothing, as my mother would have put it, though the plans I was forming would be little use to her. I fetched a pack from my closet and filled it with more clothes, as well as my box of flint and steel. I paused, thinking that mayhap I should run to the kitchens and get some food for my journey. But I had no time. My mother would soon send guards to find me. I would have to hunt on the road. That was fine. I journeyed often through Tokana, and I was able to keep myself well fed as I did so. I slung the pack over my back, took up my bow from where it rested near the door to my room, and left. No one saw me as I snuck out of the stronghold, but my heart did not ease as I made it into the city. All the guards knew me, and even if I pulled my cowl down over my face, my clothing was too fine for them to think I was simply some passerby. And it was night besides. No one wandering the streets in the moon's light would pass without suspicion.
Did my Twitter get hacked? Yep. Hi, sweetheart.
Hey, did you tweet about Ray-Ban sunglasses?
I did not. My account got hacked, apparently.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm changing my password right now. Erica let me know on stream, actually.
Yeah, I got a notification saying the event has begun, and I clicked on the link, and I was like,
Eh?
um,
Oh,
what
please!
event?
You clicked on the link? Why?
I did.
Don't click on the link. Your Twitter might get hacked now.
Great. I was in Legacy, so I'm gonna change Legacy
Oh, fantastic. Please make sure you save it in LastPass.
Okay. I was gonna do it. Can you change it then?
I will change it. I'll do it right now.
Okay. Say thank you to Erica. She's amazing.
Will do.
Can she hear me?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. We love you, Erica.
Love you, Erica.
Okay. Love you.
Love you, bye.
Bye.
Erica, I love my wife dearly, but she clicks on links and she answers phone calls when she really, really shouldn't. Make sure there's nothing else. I didn't reply to anybody with. Wow. Glad I checked my replies because there's a. Oh, wow. 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 Okay. There are what look to be literally hundreds of tweets by me. In the last 5 minutes.
Wow.
I'm over the daily limit for sending tweets. That's cool.
Can you delete all the tweets?
I'm trying to find a way to do it to do it without having to do it manually.
I think. Why? How many tweets were they?
It looks like literally hundreds.
Wow.
Here's my replies, right? So it starts here.
Evil people.
Basically.
See if you can tweet now. Since you've deleted some. Ray-Ban really cares.
Mm.
You're not sharing your screen, right?
No, I'm not sharing my screen.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Good. Somebody just logged into Legacy. Oh, was that you?
Yes.
Okay. Doesn't look like they did anything.
Good. Changing the legacy password, just, for...
Can you email that to me?
It's going to be in LastPass.
Okay. It's just programmed into my phone.
Cool.
I'll get it from LastPass.
Thank you.
Why don't you just say it on stream?
Oh my God, Megan. I'm
Well,
trying to deal with this right
okay,
now.
let me leave you alone.
Sorry. Love you.
Love you. Just thank donuts later.
I can't wait. Yep, can't tweet that my account got hacked because, you know. Jesus Christ. That really sucks, Lauren. There we go. No, 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 no. God damn it. Yeah, TweetDeck makes this way easier. Oh my god. How many of these fucking things are there? God, this might not be hundreds. This might be thousands. God damn it. Okay, this shit's driving me batty. Whoops. I don't know how to do that, honestly. They don't have like live chat or anything like that. Yeah, I just sent Twitter a help ticket. They said we're usually able to respond within a few days, but some issues may take longer. It's like, thanks. Oh, definitely please don't report the tweets, please. Yeah, you don't report like yeah. Son of a... And while I'm doing this, because of the way these things are laid out, I keep accidentally clicking on the frickin' link. Oh, it's way more than... Yeah, it's looking like way more than 300, honestly. Oh my god. I did it. Ugh. Yeah. Still saying that I'm at my daily tweet limit. Well, what are you going to do? I'm going to get back to work. Oh. I really like tiger cubs. All right. All right. Let's get back to it. Crying out loud.
Thus I tried to remain alert, watching in all directions for anyone approaching me.
Ari, TweetDeck is it's a it's an it's a website that is a portal into Twitter. So it's not Twitter's website, but it enables you. Actually, you know what? I can share my screen real quick and show you. Okay, so here's my screen. And this is TweetDeck. So over here, I've got these columns, and I can arrange them how I want. And each of them is determined by me. Like, I can get rid of this column right here, and then I can add it back in. I can say, I want a column that shows all search results for fantasy book, which is one I usually keep up. So now, literally any tweet on Facebook, on Twitter that contains fantasy book will show up here in real time. This column in the middle here is mentions. Anytime somebody mentions me, including replying to my tweet, they're all here chronological order. The column on the left is me, and these all kind of just like update in real time. And then it's also really easy to, like, there's a bunch of keywords that make life easier. Like, you just type N and it pulls up a tweet window. So I can say, account got hacked today. How's your day going? And then, of course, I can't actually tweet it because I've tweeted enough for today, but that's fine. Actually, I can say, account got hacked yesterday and tweeted so many spam messages that I couldn't tweet the rest of the day. How's your week going? So I can write a tweet that I want to send tomorrow, and then I can schedule tweet for tomorrow, 22 9 a.m. And then boom, scheduled. So scheduling tweets, which is obviously a functionality that Twitter does not normally let you do, so that's nice. Let's do some other cool stuff too. You can do direct messages, easy. Anyway, it honestly just makes the whole Twitter experience a lot better. The Twitter home feed is pretty garbage. Too much stuff all at once. It works a lot better for me. It might take some customization to work for you, or it just might not work at all. Oh, thank you for the picture of the tiger cub. Oh my god, look at them. Oh, baby. Huh. All right, now I can get back to it. Oh, before I do that, though, I should probably take my monitor off the screen, because that's not what y'all are here for. If I'm being honest, I don't know exactly what y'all are here for, but I know it ain't that. Thank you so much for the tiger cub picture. It was adorable.
Thus I tried to remain alert, watching in all directions for anyone approaching me. But it was hard. My head was still heavy with the wine I had drunk. I know I stumbled. I know I crashed into at least a few buildings as I lurched through the streets. I barely remember any of that. The next clear memory I have is of approaching the city's north gate. I stood there for a moment, trying to think how I could get through. Then there came shouts, and the gate swung open. A party of rangers on foot came through from the outside, returning from patrol, I guessed. Whatever the case, I seized my opportunity. As soon as the gateway stood empty, I ran towards it. I tripped at the last moment, but I fell to the ground outside just as the gate slammed shut. My escape had not gone unnoticed. A cry went up, and they labored to open the gate again. I scrambled to my feet and ran. It was not long before I heard them behind me, many voices shouting in the darkness, hunting for me by moon's light. But that was dim and fey, for rain was falling, and the thick... But that was dim. But that was dim and fey. But that was dim and fey, for rain was falling, and the thick clouds in the sky obscured everything. Despite my drunken state, I was able to keep my distance from my pursuers because I knew the land so well. My feet carried me north on the same road Mag and I would travel all those years later searching for the weremage, and they brought me to the bridge. But as I came to the place, the clouds obscured the moons completely, and everything went almost pitch black. I crashed into someone, and we both fell to the ground. To someone, and I crashed into someone, and we both fell to the ground. At first I panicked. Thinking one of my pursuers had caught me. But then I realized the person had been in front of me. They had just crossed the bridge from the other direction. They were making for the city. The clouds parted for a moment, and in the flash of moon's light I saw a face, but it swam in the darkness and my own drunkenness. All I could focus on was the black cloak, trimmed with red, the colors of my family. I screamed and backed away on hands and knees. Because, you see, I knew about the shelf by the end of the bridge. I knew about the shelf by the end of the bridge. I fell onto the shelf and crawled to the slope on the other side, pitching myself over. It was slick with rainwater, and I flew down it faster than a hawk diving upon its prey. My stomach lurched, and I vomited over the side, my sick splashing upon the valley floor far, far below. But at last I came to the end of the slide. For a long while I lay there, panting, heaving, feeling ill in both body and spirit. At last I looked back up the slide. The ranger must have seen me, but whoever they were, they had not followed. They had to have recognized me, yet they had not followed. I thought that mayhap they had cracked their head when I knocked them over, that they had been knocked senseless, unable to understand what they had seen, unable to call the other guards and point them in my direction. I thought about them fairly often over the next few months. I hoped they were all right. I thought they must have been. We had not struck each other all that hard. But then how had I escaped? It made no sense. Do you understand, son? You will.
Okay, 25 done. Bodegazilla! Rock and roll indeed. Did you witness what happened on Twitter today, Bodegazilla? Bodegazilla. Bodegazilla. Oh, well, Erica, this has been edited by somebody else. I'm just doing a final QC listen through. Well, my account got hacked today. And somebody tweeted approximately 400 or 500 tweets. No, I think according to Erica's guess, it was about 300 tweets promoting Ray-Ban sunglasses. Yeah, my audio editor is fan-friggin-tastic. All right, so with the tweet, the adult performer who's discovered your books. Oh, I have to look into this. I have to look into this. What is going on? There we go. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Wow, somebody else is yelling at you about Trump stuff. That's fantastic. Lisbeth Eden. Okay, I'm on it. Yeah. Here, if I search your Twitter handle. Oh. Your Twitter handle might be... Hey, Des, good morning. Your Twitter handle, the handle that I thought was yours might be somebody else's. Ha! Ha! Yeah. Somebody is yelling at your name as a Twitter handle. Yeah. About that other thing. What's up, buddy?
I just want to hang out with you for a while.
Okay, cool. Mwah. Yeah, what's up, buddy?
We gonna put the new keyboard in.
Your new keyboard?
Yeah.
I'm actually taking a break right now, so I can do that. I am going to take a quick break, grab myself a snacky snack, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Be right back. Let's do something slightly different to cheer ourselves up after getting Twitter hacked. Been working on trying to figure out music recently because I really would love to post a song. I've been working on this song for a really long time. I've had the lyrics forever and I've never been able to figure out a tune to it that I really like. It's very annoying. Writing music is hard. All right, we should probably get back to audiobooks. Oh, shoot, and get a charge cord for our laptop because it's running out of battery. Bum, 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 bum. All right, well, I'm going to work for another half hour, and then I have to go be a hunter-gatherer for my family. Which means probably one more chapter. And it's a long one, so that works. Ari, it's actually even less impressive than that. I'm doing a donut run. Oh, that blows, Erica. Yeah, you should totally stream.
Chapter 26. The Rangers rounded us up and walked us back to Cahuenga, positioning us in their midst. They did, however, show us the courtesy of fetching our horses when we told them they were a little farther up the road. For our part, we made no trouble for them on the way back to Cahuenga. Oku followed faithfully at our heels, seemingly unconcerned by the new company we kept. As we went, the captain questioned us, asking where we had taken lodgings and where she might find the old man we had come to Cahuenga with. I barely heard her, and so Mag answered. They went to the place, and one of the rangers went inside to fetch Dryleaf. He emerged with a bemused expression, his hand on the guard's arm. "Are you there, Kanahari? Chow?" he said. "Here, Dryleaf," said Mag. "Ah, good. Your plan of secrecy and stealth has gone swimmingly, I see." Mag stuck her tongue out and blew at him. Dryleaf smiled. "Well, I am told the Rangatira requires an audience. We should be honored." Mag laughed, and even one or two of our guards gave a brief chuckle before biting it off. Dryleaf flashed them all a smile and went to take Mag's arm for guidance. Before we left, Mag looked down at Oku. "Oku, Kip," she said sternly. The hound cocked his head at her, and a low whine issued from his throat. "Do as she says, boy," said Dryleaf. Oku lay down in front of the inn, but he did not take his eyes off us, even as we set off down the street and out of sight. Our captors led us through the city towards my family's stronghold. I found myself unable to speak, unable to do much more than stew in terror at what lay before us. We were being brought to see my mother. Would she recognize me? Could she? I had not had my wending when I left, and many years had passed since then. But still, she would have to know my face. I was her child. Then I realized how little that had ever seemed to mean to her, and I felt even worse. The stronghold gates swung open as we approached, and the rangers led us inside. The rangers led us inside. The captain ordered most of them away, bringing only 3 with her as she escorted us into the stronghold. Memories struck me like a fell wind as I stepped through the door, leaving my knees weak. Mag saw it, and she put a hand on my shoulder to steady me. "Easy," she murmured. "We will all be fine. Let me do the talking." "Gladly," I said, my voice weak. I pulled up my hood and dragged it down low over my face. The captain stopped us before the huge doors leading into my mother's audience chamber. There she left us with the other rangers, while she ducked inside. Our guards removed our bindings. I stood stock still as they did it, staring at my own hands. "What happened?" said Dryleaf quietly. "The weremage was following us," said Mag. "We almost ran her down, but our friends here came upon us and mistook our intent." The rangers gave her a sidelong look, but they remained silent. "How unfortunate," said Dryleaf with a sigh. "Well, hopefully the Rangatira will understand." My limbs had begun to shake. My mother being understanding? It was more than I could imagine. Another moment's silence stretched. Then Dryleaf cocked his head. "You said she was following you. The 2 of you did not track her down?" "No," said Mag. "So she knew we were here." A cold dread came over me. She had known we were here. It was too far-fetched to assume that she and the other shade had simply stumbled upon us in the mountains. "She must have seen us when we arrived to Cahuenga," said Mag, though her voice was tinged with doubt. "It is not as though she led us here," I said. "She led us here." Dryleaf gave a grim nod. "You have been given quite a trail of breadcrumbs." "What, since Opara?" said Mag. "I find that hard to believe." "Mayhap even earlier," I said. "Always we have gained one piece of information at a time, never enough to bring her down, but only to lead us to the next step in the road." "But that was true in Northwood," said Mag. "Are you saying that in the mountains and in Lan Shui she—" And then she, too, fell to silence. But where I was now racked with fear and confusion, I saw a burning rage rise in her eyes. Her fists clenched, knuckles turning white. "But that begs a question," said Dryleaf. "Why? Why all this? You do not even know her name, Mag. What grudge could she bear you that would be worth all this?" "Only one answer matters to me," snapped Mag. "The same I have sought since the beginning. Her head on the end of my spear." In front of us, the chamber door creaked open. The ranger captain stepped out. "Follow me." I steeled myself, following Mag and Dryleaf into the chamber. I remained behind them, forcing myself to stay as calm as I could. Mag would do the talking. Mother would hardly even glimpse my face. She was never interested in visitors, unless she thought they were of some value to her. She would never notice an attendant in the back. The door closed behind us. I risked a glance up at the dais from beneath my cowl. I froze. The room was just as I remembered it, long and wide with a high ceiling. The walls had a series of short windows near the top, impossible for anyone to climb in, just enough to provide some ventilation for the fires that burned in 2 hearths. The stone pillars running up both sides of the room were of gleaming white limestone, while gray limestone made up the floor. But that gray was now covered with many rugs, which had not been the case in my youth. I saw the furs of bears and mountain cats, but also of creatures from more distant foreign lands. They were well swept and clean, and they made a soft surface for us to walk upon as we approached my mother's dais. But the woman in the chair was not my mother. Oh, she had the same sharp chin, the same piercing eyes, the same wide nose. She even wore her hair in tight braids bound up close to her scalp as my mother had. But she was much younger than my mother, only a few years older than me. I looked into the face of my middle sister, Dietra. This was such a shock to me that it was a good long while before I noticed anything else about the room. When I did, it was only to see that there were a few guards posted along the walls, and that just behind Dietra's chair was a young man wearing the Telfer family colors, as well as a badge of my family's symbol made of gold, her lead ranger. I did not recognize him, but I remembered Tuin's words back in Opara. His name was Maya. My gaze was pulled back to the center of the dais, back to my sister sitting in my mother's chair, wearing my mother's stern countenance, crowned with the silver circlet my mother had borne as her mark of office. It was like seeing my mother all over again, but younger, the way she had looked when I was but a child. In the end, I realized I had been staring too long, and I ducked my head again. For her part, Dietra had not seemed to recognize me in the slightest. Mag and Dryleaf stood in front of me, and so she paid attention only to them, likely thinking me some sort of retainer or guard, and not an equal member of our little party. That, too, was very like our mother. Her lead ranger stepped forwards and raised a hand, causing us to stop a good 5 paces away from the dais. "You stand before Lord Dietra of the family Telfer, Lord of Kahonga, Rangatira of the domain of Tokana." My sister tilted her head up slightly. "Well met, travelers," she said. The words were courteous, even if her voice was steely, and suddenly her likeness to my mother was greatly diminished in my mind. Yes, she spoke in a stern tone, but that was my sister's voice, a voice I knew better than any but Mag's, a voice I treasured beyond anything else in my life. I ducked my head still lower, struggling to contain tears. I did not entirely succeed, and I had to pretend to scratch my cheek to wipe them away. We all bowed low with our fists to our foreheads. "Well met, Rangatira," said Mag. She had given me a brief, confused glance when we entered the hall, but seeing my state, she had not looked at me again. "I am Chow, and this is Dryleaf. We are honored to stand in your presence." "Kind words coming from the mouth of one who has been found breaking the law in my domain," said Dietra. "I have long had great respect for the family Telfer," said Mag, "though it has been long since I was able to visit your noble dwelling. May I ask, where is the former lord, Thada of the family Telfer?" The chamber fell silent. The lead ranger frowned down at us, but more in confusion than anger, I thought.
Do it, Ari. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. Maybe. You might not love it, and that's totally fine, too.
Dietra had gone rather still in her chair, and while she did not exactly scowl down at Mag, she looked even more solemn than she had a moment ago. "She passed into the darkness some time ago," she said. "I find it hard to believe you could have met her, for you look as if you would have been very young when she died." I felt as if the ground had tilted beneath my feet. I gripped the back of Dryleaf's robes, holding him for support, trying not to come unmoored from the very earth. Dryleaf, for his unmoored from the very earth. From the very earth. Not to come unmoored from the very earth. Dryleaf, for his part, tried to keep still. though I am afraid I may have put a great deal of weight on the poor man. "I am often told that I look younger than I am," said Mag in a quiet voice. "I am sorry for your family's loss. How did she die?" The lead ranger shifted again, but plainly in annoyance this time. Dietra, too, seemed angered by the question, and her lips drew tight. "I hope I do not offend," said Mag quickly. "It is only, we had the chance to speak once, and I was young, as you said. It was a conversation I have never forgotten." Dietra seemed to relent slightly at that, though she looked no more pleased. "She was riding in the mountains," she said. "Feldemarians attacked and killed her. It was shortly after the death of my older sister." I could scarcely withstand the storm of emotions now raging within me, and yet somehow I did withstand it. What I was feeling, it was happening, but I could not let it affect me. I could not let it show in my face. I could not let it reveal anything about me or draw Dietra's attention to me. I had been afraid of being recognized when I thought I would have to face my mother. Now I was terrified, and so I controlled myself, despite the agony it caused me. Emotion would be of no help. It would ruin everything. It would cause me to make a mistake, and that would endanger me and my friends. So I simply did not permit the emotion to affect me. I removed it from myself, to a place where it could hold no sway over my actions. At that moment, I first began to understand Mag's battle trance. I could not allow my thoughts to control me, and so I simply left. I put myself in another place so that I could do what I had to do to survive. A part of myself was destroyed as I did it, like I had ripped myself in two, but it was the only way. And with that realization, the first seed of a question was planted in my mind. What had happened to Mag long ago that had made her feel this way for the first time? And how, when it was so agonizing to me, had she continued to use it over and over again until it became one of her hallmarks in battle? Use it over and over.
Ooh. Mouth clickies. Ugly, ugly mouth clickies.
Use it over and over again until it became one of her hallmarks in battle. But all of this passed through my mind in a flash, the way these moments do, to be considered later. Meanwhile, Mag and Dietra continued their conversation. "No words can express my sorrow," said Mag. "Though years have passed since your loss, I offer my deepest sympathy." "I am comforted by your kind words," said Dietra, who did not particularly sound as if she was. "But that is not why you stand before me. What are the three of you doing in my lands?" "We were sent north," said Mag. "We serve Lord Matara." Dietra frowned. "And what service are you providing him?" "He ordered us to hunt down a rogue weremage who had been plaguing his domain," said Mag. "A rogue weremage," said Dietra flatly. "And he did not give this matter to the mystics?" Mag hesitated. Dryleaf cleared his throat. Dryleaf cleared his throat. Dryleaf. Mag hesitated. Dryleaf cleared his throat, drawing Dietra's attention. "Lord Telfer," he said, "this matter concerns secret words that all the Calentan lords have recently heard from the High King's seat." Dietra's face betrayed nothing, but she turned and motioned towards Maya with 2 fingers. He waved to the guards stationed along the walls, and they slowly filed out of the room, closing the door behind them. Dietra turned back to us. "This concerns the shades," she said. "As we told your rangers in the mountains," said Mag, though mayhap we spoke in haste. "The weremage we are hunting, she is a shade, and she is operating with others in the area." "Why would Lord Matara not have sent word of this to me at once?" said Dietra. "And this does not explain why he would not take this matter to the mystics. A rogue weremage falls under their jurisdiction, and even more so if she is a shade." "As for your first question, the Rangatira did not know the weremage would come here," said Dryleaf. "Nor did we. We pursued her away from Opara and followed her trail through the kingdom, only arriving here yesterday. In hindsight, it would have been wise of us to come to you before we continued our chase, but we have been on a long trail, and we thought we saw its end within reach. As for your second question, the mystics in Opara were notified. In Opara,
Ara.
The mystics in Opara were notified, but they only recently discovered a cabal of shades in the wilderness near their city, and they have been much preoccupied with rooting them out. They approved of the Rangatira's request to let us handle this matter. It was a brilliant stroke, all the more so because I knew Dryleaf had made it up on the spot. If Dietra tried to investigate the truth of his words, she would find that yes, a cadre of shades had indeed been found outside of Opara. As for the mystics, they would be reticent to give any information about matters concerning a rogue weremage, whether or not they had already heard of her. "You told my rangers something different when you entered the city," said Dietra. "Because Lord Matara told us that we were not to speak of the shades to anyone but another Rangatira," said Mag. She nodded to Maya. "And those they trust, of course." Dietra considered that for a long moment. I noticed Maya eyeing her out of the corner of his eye, though the man tried not to be obvious about it.
Oops. Oopsie.
Considered that for a long moment.
We're on the sound booth microphone real quick for a second because I have to pick up a line here that I accidentally didn't say in Albern's voice. Dietra considered that for a long moment. I noticed Maya eyeing her out of the corner of his eye, though the man tried not to be obvious about it. Oh, god damn it.
She nodded to Maya, and those they trust, of course. Dietrich considered that for a long moment. I noticed Maya eyeing her out of the corner of his eye, though the man tried not to be obvious about it. They trust, of course. Dietrich considered that for a long moment. I noticed Maya eyeing her out of the corner of his eye, though the man tried not to be obvious about it. "Why has this weremage come here?" said Dietrich at last. "What are she and the other shades planning?" "We are not certain," said Mag. "But news has reached us of your recent trouble with the trolls. We think the shades may have something to do with it." "I think you know little of trolls," said Dietrich, arching an eyebrow. "If you think they have allowed themselves to be influenced by humans, shades or otherwise. Trolls will treat with us, but they will only take advice and counsel from among their own." "Of course it sounds unlikely," said Dryleaf diplomatically. "We would say the same thing if we had not heard of something like it before. Word reached Opara of the Shades doing something similar in Dorsey. They hatched a plan around a magic ritual, one that summoned vampires and drove them into a frenzy of hunger. A town near the Great Rocks was almost destroyed, and would have been, if not for the actions of a few brave heroes." Mag's mouth twitched. "Vampires?" said Maya incredulously. "No one can command those savage beasts." "Yet they did," said Dryleaf, bowing his head. "I hope, then, that you can understand why we think they may have something to do with the trolls." "That is evil news, if it is true," said Dietrich. "Yet I have never heard of and cannot imagine any such ritual that would command a troll." "Nor have we," said Mag. "Yet we suspect it all the same. It was one thing we hoped to learn on our expedition. If we are correct, it is a clear pattern, a strategy the Shades may be using in other places, in other kingdoms, even now. Deetra tapped her chin with one finger. Stirring up creatures from the wilds to sow chaos and disruption. These are the tactics of a foe fighting a war of stealth and subterfuge. Guerrilla tactics, said Mag with a nod. They cannot stand toe-to-toe with the High King, and so they instigate battles between her armies and other forces to supplement their numbers. Deetra slid her hands along the arms of her chair and pushed her shoulders back, stretching. If this is part of their strategy, it will be very useful information in the coming days. I will send word of this to the king and advise them to relay it to the High King. We all bowed deeply. Thank you, Rangatira, said Dryleaf. You prove yourself wise beyond your years, or at least so I guess from the sound of your voice. Deetra gave a little smile, almost it seemed against her will, and said, Thank you, grandfather. Then her eyes swept across us again. So you and the quiet one in the back are rangers? Dryleaf and Mag paused for a moment that stretched too long. I realized in the back are rangers? Dryleaf and Mag paused for a moment that stretched too long. I realized that they were reluctant to answer, afraid they would miss some intricacy of Calentan politics and make a misstep. Though I badly wished to hold my tongue, I spoke. No, Lord Telfer. Simple soldiers. We have no marks. So he has not fallen asleep back there, said Deetra. I ducked my head lower, hoping it looked like I was embarrassed and not trying to hide my face. I can believe the two of you are soldiers, especially since you have Conras's writ. She turned to Dryleaf. But I think your fighting days are behind you, if you will forgive my saying so. Was it Dryleaf? It was, and is, Rangatira, said Dryleaf, smiling broadly. And you are correct. I am one of Conras's advisers. In my youth I had many dealings with the mystics, and I learned from them many secrets of dealing with rogue wizards. These two are sellswords, working for hire. I winced, but it was too late. At the word sellswords, Deetra's small smile vanished, to be replaced with a dour expression. Strange that Conras would trust mercenaries with such an important task, said Deetra. Stranger still that he would relay to them the information he had received from the High King. Foolish, one might even say. We have served him for many long years, I said quickly. The Rangatira knows he can trust in our discretion. Indeed, we would have joined his rangers long ago, but we were somewhat involved in a disagreement with him and the Rangatira Hauru of Tonga, and Lord Matara was reluctant to bring us into his service, for fear of causing offense. Deetra's stern look did not relax any, but she did lean back in her chair with a sigh. Sky save us all from politicking, she said irritably. On which point we could not agree more, said Dryleaf. And I hope you will believe me when I say that I have rarely encountered two more worthy soldiers in all my years of being a counselor. And with that, I believe we have taken up as much of your doubtless precious time as can be spared. Though if you wish it, I would be honored to sing for your dining hall tonight, or any night that you would have me. She seemed to be more irritated than ever, though she still maintained a thin veneer of decorum. I do not wish it. My position leaves me no time to sit idly and listen to songs. Mag, sensing the tension in the room, spoke again. In that case, Lord Telfer, we would beg your leave. We should set about our business of tracking down this weremage. With your permission, of course. Normally I would not give it, said Deetra. This matter has moved into Tokana, which means it falls to me to settle it. But my rangers are already stretched thin. steadily it. But my rangers are already stretched thin to ensure none of my people are harmed by the trolls. Therefore, I will permit you to continue your hunt. You may speak with my lead ranger, Maya, if you require anything from us." She waved a hand at him, and he gave us a slow nod. "I will also order the soldiers of my house to be on the alert while they patrol. They know the Shade's colors, but any information you have on the Weremage would be useful." "She has Kalentin features," said Mag. "When we have seen her in human form, she has worn her long black hair in a braid down her back." "That narrows it down not a whit," said Dietra. "What of her animal forms?" "We have seen two, though there may be others," said Mag. "A raven and a brown mountain lion with a white tail." Dietra did not respond to that. Her eyes did not widen. Her hands did not clench. I doubt that Mag or Dryleaf noticed anything change in her appearance. But I sensed something in her demeanor. Maya, however, did not give her a second glance, and I told myself I must have imagined it. "That is something to go on, at least," said Dietra. "I will relay it to my rangers. You are dismissed." "Thank you, Rangatira," said Dryleaf, bowing low once again. Mag and I did the same, and then I took Dryleaf's arm, guiding him along as I followed Mag out of the room.
Chapter 26 done. Woof. That is a long one. Oh. Okay, so I gotta export and upload this. And then I gotta go forage for donuts. Wow, even with having to record an audio pickup, we made pretty good time on that one. Ugh. All right, I'm going to throw a raid at Fairy Wings. Go say hi to her for me. Looks to be playing Animal Crossings. Animal Crossing? Crossing, singular, yes. Yes, I knew this. Yeah, I probably won't be streaming again today. I might do some more work off stream, but setting up a whole nother stream, I just haven't been feeling like that, especially in the afternoons. But I'm going to go get donuts for the family and then eat lunch, and then I'll be around Discord and whatnot. So, good to hang out with you all. Thank you for gifting those subs, Lauren. You're awesome. Good to see you, Ari, Wordwin, Bodegazilla, and everybody. And I will catch you another time. Bye.
Dog!